Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to YouTube channel Battlefield Stories. The sun was barely breaking over the horizon when Colonel Amelia Hayes pulled her dusty SUV up to the west gate of Fort Ravenwood. The air was thick with the smell of early morning dew and jet fuel from the nearby flight line. She'd purposely arrived early, 0500 hours sharp, long before the base's official welcoming ceremony. Her plan was simple: arrive unannounced, get a feel for her new command, and see how her people operated when they thought no one was watching. She had done this at every command she'd led before, from Kandahar to Okinawa. The measure of a unit wasn't in its briefings or its flags, it was in the small things. The gate guard's tone, the way the mechanics treated their tools, the posture of a soldier who thought no one important was around. But she hadn't expected this morning's welcome. As she rolled down her window, the young airman on duty snapped to attention, face serious but eyes uncertain. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but this gate's for authorized personnel only. You'll have to turn around." Amelia blinked, surprised. "I am authorized personnel. Do you have an entry pass, ma'am?" he asked, voice polite but firm. His name tag read, Morris. He couldn't have been older than 22. She smiled faintly, reaching into her jacket. "I've got my ID right here." Before she could hand it over, another guard, a sergeant, stepped out of the small checkpoint building, holding a cup of coffee and squinting against the rising sun. "What's the issue, Morris?" "Ma'am's trying to enter without prior clearance," the airman said quickly. The sergeant eyed her SUV, dusty, no visible decals, civilian plates. "This is a restricted base, ma'am. We can't let you through without proper authorization." "Who are you here to see?" Amelia considered her words carefully. "Colonel Amelia Hayes." The sergeant frowned, as though the name rang a bell but didn't quite click. "Colonel Hayes, the new base commander." She nodded, trying to suppress a smile. "That's right," he chuckled, shaking his head. "Yeah, sure, and I'm the Secretary of Defense." The younger guard snorted before quickly catching himself. Amelia leaned out her window, her calm gaze unwavering. "You think I'm joking? I think the colonel's not scheduled to arrive until 0800, the sergeant said. "And I doubt she'd be driving an old Ford Escape with a coffee stain on her uniform." Amelia looked down. Sure enough, she'd spilled her thermos on her sleeve. The corners of her mouth twitched. "Fair point. Ma'am, please turn around and head to the visitors center," he said. "We'll get this sorted." She could have pulled rank right then. Could have flashed her ID card and watched their faces fall. But something in her, a sense of curiosity, maybe even compassion, stopped her. She wanted to see how far this would go. So instead, she leaned back in her seat. "Sergeant, what's your name?" "Foster, ma'am." "Well, Sergeant Foster, I appreciate your diligence. But I've come a long way, and I'd rather not waste time at a visitor's desk." Foster crossed his arms. "Rules are rules, ma'am. Even for visitors who think they're colonels." Amelia raised an eyebrow, impressed. "You really don't break protocol, do you?" "No, ma'am," he said, jaw tight. "Not for anyone." Her gaze softened. "Good answer." At that moment, another vehicle pulled up behind her, a black government SUV with two uniformed officers inside. One of them, Major Daniels, stepped out the moment he saw her. "Ma'am, you're here already," he shouted, hustling toward her. Foster's eyes widened. "Wait, ma'am." Amelia stepped out of her SUV, brushing the sand from her jacket. "Morning, Major. Nice of you to finally catch up." Daniels saluted crisply. "Base is standing by for your arrival, Colonel Hayes." Both guards snapped to attention, horror flooding their faces. Amelia returned their salute slowly, her expression unreadable. "At ease, gentlemen." Foster swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I didn't know." She waved him off gently. "If you had, and you'd let me through without checking credentials, then I'd be concerned." Morris's face turned red. "We were just following protocol," she finished for him. "I know, and that's exactly what I expect from my team." For a moment, the tension hung in the air like static. Then Amelia smiled. A small, genuine smile that softened her sharp, commanding presence. "Now, Sergeant Foster, Airman Morris, how about you give me a proper escort to headquarters?" The two guards scrambled, calling ahead and waving her vehicle through, their movements sharp and nervous. As she drove past the checkpoint, Major Daniels glanced at her, still half smiling in disbelief. "You do realize they'll probably never forget that moment, right?" "That's the point," Amelia said. "Respect isn't earned by showing your rank, it's earned by showing your principles." Inside headquarters, word spread fast. By the time Amelia stepped into the operations center, everyone already knew what had happened at the gate. The room snapped to attention the second she entered. "At ease," she said. Her tone was calm but commanding. Her chief of staff, Colonel Lawson, approached, shaking his head. "Heard you gave the gate detail quite the scare, ma'am." "I didn't give them anything," she replied. "They earned it." Lawson chuckled. "I take it you're making an impression." "That's the plan," she said, scanning the room. The walls were lined with maps, flight schedules, and mission boards. Everything looked neat, but not alive. She could feel it instantly. The air was heavy with formality, not energy. She turned to the assembled officers. "Before we begin briefings, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not here to run this base from a desk. I'm here to work with you. To learn what you're doing right, and what's holding you back." A murmur rippled through the room. Some faces were skeptical, others, curious. "Most of you don't know me," she continued. "So I'll save the speeches. What I will say is that I've served in places where rank meant survival, and where compassion meant leadership. My job isn't to remind you who's in charge. My job is to make sure we're worthy of the uniforms we wear." The room fell silent. Even Lawson seemed caught off guard. Then, from the back, a young logistics officer raised her hand. "Ma'am, is it true you showed up at the gate without telling anyone?" Amelia smiled faintly. "It is. And they didn't recognize you?" "Not at first." The room chuckled softly. Amelia let them have the moment. "They followed procedure. That's exactly what I want from all of you. Discipline and integrity, even when no one's watching." Lawson leaned toward her, whispering, "They're going to quote that for weeks." "Good," she whispered back. Later that afternoon, Amelia returned to the gate. She found Sergeant Foster and Airman Morris still on duty. They both straightened the moment they saw her. "Ma'am, good afternoon." "At ease," she said, stepping forward. "How's the shift?" "Quiet, ma'am. No unidentified colonels today," Foster said, half grinning. She laughed. "Glad to hear it." Then she reached into her pocket and handed him a small envelope. "For the both of you." Inside were 2 challenge coins, each engraved with the Fort Ravenwood insignia and her personal call sign, Sentinel. "You both showed me what accountability looks like," she said. "Keep it that way." The 2 men stood speechless for a moment. Then Foster said quietly, "Thank you, ma'am. We won't forget." "I know," she said softly. "That's what leadership's about." As she walked back to her SUV, the setting sun caught her reflection in the windshield. For a brief moment, she saw herself not as the woman who had climbed the ladder, but as the young lieutenant who once stood guard at a gate like this, tired, unseen, but determined to do things the right way. Now, years later, she was the one being saluted. She smiled faintly, then turned back toward the heart of the base. Behind her, Foster and Morris watched in silence as their new commander disappeared into the glow of the evening sun, already a legend in their eyes.